So today I'm going to be talking about the TESTO 550s and the TESTO 550i manifold, okay? And then the 605i psychrometers or hygrometers or whatever probes. TESTO always has a very unique way of naming their tools, but hey, they work, right? We've got the new vacuum gauge, the temperature clamps, the new app. I'm going to go into depth, but I wanted to preface all of this with saying that when I do tool reviews, I don't want to read instruction manuals, okay? I want to show the intuitiveness of the app, the ecosystem within it, the tools, and everything. So, to be fair to the manufacturers, if I can't figure something out, it might be because I'm an idiot and I just simply didn't read the manual, okay? Also, I don't want you guys to take my review or my observations as, don't buy it or do buy it. I want you guys to make the decisions with the information that I've shown you and then kind of choose, okay? You guys are going to see some interesting things that I did find between the two manifolds, okay? All right, first impression, TESTO 550s, just opening the box. Honestly, this is weird. Again, this is my first impressions. I haven't yet to use this. I've honestly never really, I don't think I've used any TESTO products ever. Knob's kind of weird that it's loose. The display seems easier to navigate. Again, never using TESTO, it's still a little different to like go between different stuff. Superheat, subcooling, enter that mode, escape, up and down to change the refrigerants. I'm on R290. Got a nice big sight glass. I'll give them that. That sight glass is huge. Went with a 3-port manifold on this one. The size is extremely small. That's my hand. I mean, it's very kind of heavy. It's bottom heavy, not so much top heavy. Okay, new micron gauge 552i. Just looks like a standard micron gauge. 605i psychrometers. This seems a little small. Again, never using a TESTO product, but this seems a little small for getting into some duct situations. These guys, not bad, but it's just a simple thermistor right there. So, not bad. All right, we've got the manifold connected. I'm waiting for my unit to turn on right now. It's kind of cool. So, I think it's only like 76 degrees in the house. So, I ramped it down to get it to turn on. We are connected to the app. Now, the app, though, is really just kind of a mirror mode. It's really to monitor. You can change a few settings, like the refrigerant type and stuff, but you can't do a whole lot controlling the manifold from within the app. So you hit measure, and it really doesn't let you change modes. You have to change the modes from within the manifold itself. Now, one thing I am going to say that's I think is a little interesting is that the manifold itself does not, I cannot figure out a way to read return and supply air temperature inside the house. I can use the psychrometers for target superheat, and I am connected to the psychrometers right now. You can see I have one inside my house and one outside. There we go, my system just turned on, but I cannot find a way within the manifold to connect to those psychrometers to get like even delta T. Okay, we're looking for 605i's, and let's go up here. It won't let me find the psychrometers. So you can do target superheat, which is interesting, but so I know it connects. It has the ability to connect. The only things you can choose within the manifold is delta T, compressor test, target superheat, pressure leak test, evacuation, superheat, and subcooling. So superheat and subcooling, there's no return and supply air temperatures. Okay, manifold, Seems decent on the sides. You know, I mean, you got your old plugs for the old temperature clamp probes thing. But as far as checking, you know, indoor conditions in the house, I see no way with the manifold, okay, with the 55s or 550s. All right, and there's nothing different that I can find on the app, okay? I, again, am not reading any instructions though, okay? I'm just turning it on and seeing how intuitive it is. So we're gonna do a vacuum test right now and show you guys how evacuation works within the manifolds. Other than that, I mean, it's decent. I've been using it for about a week and a half now. It's got some scuff marks on the top, but nothing too bad. The display, I've used it at nighttime. It's decent, you know. It's kind of small. The manifold, I've said it already in the beginning, it's the size of my hand. But, you know, I got nothing really to complain about per se. It's a nice manifold. It's very compact. So yeah, let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and put the 550i on, and I'm going to show you some differences about the 550i between the 550s. All right, I've got the 550i connected now. Now, I'm going to show you guys something that I find very interesting. You have more capabilities within the app ecosystem and all the probes with the 550i than you do the 550s, okay? And I'm going to show you guys. So, on the 550i, first off, everything is controlled from the app. So you hit the menu button, change, look at all the different modes you can go through. Volume flow, differential temperature, refrigeration, target superheat, compressor test, cooling and heating, I mean everything. So we go to cooling and heating, it's automatically gonna ask for return and supply air, of which, remember, you couldn't do, or I couldn't figure out how to do with the 550s. I also have more air probes. So I have one outside, I have two air probes inside. I also have a suction line temperature clamp inside and a suction line temperature clamp outside. So we can see all sorts of things and we can do all sorts of tests. All right, so let's see. 109 is my suction line temperature inside of 51 degrees. Okay, and then let's go down here. This is my suction line temperature outside, 56 degrees. So out of curiosity, 52 degrees. So you see we have heat gain on that suction line of approximately 4 degrees. So maybe I need to address some insulation issues. Maybe go thicker wall insulation because I've got heat gain on that suction line. We're gaining heat. You could do the same thing, you know, differential tests and stuff. Now, one thing I'm gonna say, because I have multiple probes, I have an outdoor probe and two probes inside. When I hit return air to assign one, I have no way of assigning, of knowing which one's which. So I have to kind of take a shot in the dark, or I can go find the numbers. I know it's not going to be probe 599. So we know it's not that one. So it's either going to be this one or this one of these two. I'm going to try for return air. I'm going to try this one, 46 degrees. I think I was incorrect. Let's change that. That's supply air. So select probe, let's go to this one. I think I still selected the same one. Let's go to this one, there you go. And then supply air, we go to this one. All right, so there we go. We now have supply and return air. And actually it's trying to calculate cooling BTUs right now. But if we go to, let's see, measurements, and let's go to basic view, okay? You can go to a graphic view, you can go to a table, you can do a couple different things. So you got to kind of get used to what you want to do with this. Compressor test, you can see superheat, subcooling, and all your temperatures. So I find more functionality in the 550i, okay, than I do in the 550s. I find the ability to connect multiple probes in the 550i that I can't seem to figure out in the 550s. Now, again, in all fairness, I have not read any instructions, and I don't want to have to read instructions. I think that it's fair that I just open it up and try it. So it looks like we also need to set our refrigerant for R22. But yeah, so that's the basic operation of the 550i and the basic operation of the 550s. Both of them are nice. They do come in these cases. I already kind of butchered this one because I was trying to find a way to store the manifold in here too. So I like cut the foam pads out and stuff. It did come with this little plastic case for the manifold. It's decent little case, you know, whatever. I really am not going to keep it. I'll keep my manifold hanging from the shelf on a, you know, with hoses attached to it, but you do have the ability to store everything in here. I've got some extra psychrometers. So if you guys are planning on buying this, unless you're going to be doing target superheat calculations, you may want to think twice about buying the psychrometers. Hey, maybe Testo will change something. Maybe they have the ability to update it or something like that. But to my knowledge, I can't figure out how to connect the 605Is for returning supply temperature on the manifold, or even use it within the app. All right, we're going to do a vacuum test on this, okay? Let's turn it on real quick. Open these guys up, and you can see it's immediately pulling into a vacuum, okay? Now, something that I notice, and I'm assuming it's just the range, okay? Because as far as I know, there is no micron gauge in the manifold itself. Obviously, you can see it right now, but also, I don't think the sensors in the manifold are calibrated and or accurate enough to pull past about -15, which is something else that I just thought was interesting. Not really a problem for me per se, okay, but I would imagine that if they didn't build the manifold to have vacuum rated transducers in it, that's what I'm assuming they're using, then maybe they could find more accuracy on the top end. If any of you guys work with transducers, I've worked a little bit with them, you know, they can tend to be accurate on one end of the range versus the other end of the range. So that's just my thought on that, okay? But I'm just showing you guys right now that there is no micron gauge in the manifold itself. The micron gauge is actually, all right, built into, and all that we're going to do is go ahead and scroll on over to here, okay? The micron gauge is actually in this guy right here, the 552i, okay? So we're going to go ahead and turn this guy on. We're going to let it connect to the manifold, all right? Now what we can do here is, you guys can see, we can go ahead and configure it. It's going to take a second to connect. We're going to go ahead and use their little chingus right here. We can go ahead and set the micron levels that we want to achieve, okay? And we can use the decay. Now, the decay test in this is a little bit different, okay? In that we're aiming for 500 microns, and then our decay target is 1,000. So it's going to set that on a graph for us. So if we go down right here, you can also adjust that to whatever you need it to be. Okay, it's searching for the 552i. That's the micron gauge. It found it. All right, now notice something, that it's connected, but it's not going to start the graph until it gets below 1,500 microns. The important thing, that I've used this a bunch of times, the important thing to understand is that this graph should be used as your decay test, okay? So I'm not going to hit start until I'm ready for my decay test, okay? So we're going to go ahead and turn this little guy on right here, and open this guy, and open the tank. And we're going to let it go ahead and connect here. It's got to start pulling down, so we're going to give it a minute and we'll come back to it. All right, so on the manifold, which I really like, it displays the microns. Once it gets below 20,000 microns, it starts registering on the manifold. And you can register it in the app. And you can control the start and stop of the decay test from in the app, which is cool, all right? It does give you outdoor air temperature. But I will say that when you are using the manifold, you do not have control of things from the app, all right? Versus when you use the 550i, you have more controls in the app, which kind of makes sense, but I'll show you guys here in a little while, which is kind of silly too in some ways, all right? So we're almost below our 1,500 target. Once we get to the 1,500 target, then we can start graphing what we're doing on this guy. All right, at this point, we've hit 500 microns on the manifold, okay? So you can see we're at 484 microns. Notice the graph, there's nothing on there. So the graph on the manifold is only used for the decay test. Now, in the beginning, it wasn't intuitive, and again, I don't read instructions, so I didn't know that. And I was confused, but now that I've realized it, so you can either hit start on the manifold right here, or you can hit start on the app. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and valve that off, and valve that off. And then now we're plotting on our graph, okay, and we're going to watch the decay test over time. So we're going to let it sit there and just pull down or run in decay, and we'll look at it on the graph and see how much we rise and how long it takes. All right, for the sake of this, we've been in decay for 10 minutes. We're at 487 microns, and you guys can see we're really not rising too much above, and that's your bar graph. So that's going to show you, you know, your decay. Now, I will say the functionality within the manifold is The functionality within the app, it's more inviting to look at the app and see the different modes and what's going on, and you can see tables. So that's cool. Again, we can hit stop from within the manifold or within the app. So we started it within the app. We're going to go ahead and stop it from the manifold. Okay. So now we're done. We can save it within the app if we want to, you know, to turn into the customer or whatever you want to do. Now, my understanding within the manifold itself, I can't find any kind of alarm function, you know, to let you know whether or not you pass the decay test. I think it's all on you. I don't know, maybe if there's something within the manifold, within the app, I don't know. I don't see anything. I see alarm threshold on here, but I don't know. Maybe the app starts beeping at you or something. I have no idea.
All right, so that was just a little bit of footage. I've been using the Testo manifolds between the two. To be fair, the one that I've been using the most is the 550s, the standalone manifold. The 550i I've used here and there on a couple different jobs, but I've used it at nighttime. I've used it during the day in the sunlight. They both work, okay? But understand something. The 550s, as it stands, without reading the manual, the best as I could figure out, is not really a standalone manifold, all right? You know, as an air conditioning technician working on residential, if you can't use the manifold to analyze your system and do, you know, standard measurements, I don't see the point, right? Because their new app, you know, within the 550i, you can do capacity calculations or delivered capacity. You can show all that stuff. So I just don't understand why I can't figure that out, how to do that with the 550s. It just doesn't make sense to me. Again, I totally understand. I might be showing my ignorance, my stupidity, because maybe you can. Maybe if I read the manual, I can figure it out. But for the life of me, you know, without reading the manual, it doesn't seem to work for me. All right. But the manifold is a decent manifold. Okay. You know, there's no perfect manifold out there. Other brands and stuff, they all have their problems. Nothing is perfect. Okay. I'd never used anything by Testo before. I have to say it's super small. I'd be interested to see how crowded what is the one with the 4-port manifold? I guess I don't know what the 570 or I don't know what the name of it is, but I'd be kind of curious to see how hard it is to get the gauge hoses on and off on the 4-port manifold, because the 3-port manifold, like I have, the 550s, it's quite crowded already because of how small it is. Okay. But as far as the tool itself, I think it's a great tool. All right. The idea that they put everything on one screen in the way that they did is cool. Okay. The vacuum portion, right? When you show the evacuation, I appreciate the graph that they put on the manifold. It's a nice graph. I really appreciate once you open up the app and you can see more. Now, to show my ignorance too, I didn't show it in this video, but in several clips that I did have of me working out in the field, I was doing the vacuum process incorrect, and I was hitting the start button while I was doing the evacuation. And then I couldn't figure out why, wait, there's no decay test. But then I realized that the start button when you're on the vacuum screen is actually the decay test. So it doesn't time the evacuation process as a whole unless you wanted to. It only times the decay test. And that's why you set your targets, okay? Again, maybe showing my ignorance within the 550s, I don't see the way to make it alarm at you or beep at you once you've reached your levels or anything like that either, okay? But again, I think it's a cool manifold. All right, so the psychrometers, they're very interesting. I don't understand why at least I can't figure out how you can't use them with the 550s during normal operation. They work amazing with the 550i. The standalone micron gauge, I think it's, what is it? I don't even remember the number, 552 or whatever. I said it in the video. The standalone micron gauge or vacuum gauge, whatever they want to call it, is pretty cool, right? I like the little right angle fitting. I like the fact that you don't have to put a little adapter on there with two connections, so you only have one connection point. that's pretty on point. That's a good feature of it, okay? I've used it, the standalone micron gauge, I think in my testing process, I used it 4 times. No issues whatsoever. I do kind of wonder, because when I use other competitors' micron gauges, I notice that they're very sensitive and they react very quickly, okay? And I have heard this in the past. I don't know if Testo does this or not, but I've heard of some vacuum gauge manufacturers or micron gauge manufacturers slowing down the reaction time on the micron readings, so that way people don't freak out when they see the true micron levels of the system. I kind of suspect that Testo might be doing that, if you guys understand what I mean, because it doesn't seem to rise very fast versus another micron gauge that I use all the time that I know is highly accurate, where it seems to react very quickly. Because, you know, a standard system, when it's operating normally, when you've evacuated it properly, the micron level is going to rise over time, okay? There's not one single system out there that is 100% leak free. So it kind of makes me wonder if they kind of slowed the reaction time of the micron reading or something like that to where it doesn't show the real time micron level. But that's just a hunch of mine. I'm not an engineer. You know, I don't know how they designed it. I think the micron gauge is awesome, and I am going to permanently keep it in my big giant vacuum case that has all my giant hoses and all that stuff. I will keep that micron gauge in there. It will be interesting. I'm sure it's going to come soon, but it will be interesting when and if this new Testo ecosystem, the new manifolds and all that stuff will potentially work with Measure Quick. I think that's going to be a breaking point for the Testo products. I realize that there's probably several manufacturers of tools out there that have seen an increase in sales because they've allowed them to be used with Measure Quick, because Measure Quick is on point as an app, but that would be a whole nother video where we could talk about that, okay? But as it stands right now, the Testo app is okay with the 550i. It's very confusing to me with the 550s, which is the standalone manifold, okay? The tools that I tested, they're cool, okay? Am I going to get rid of, okay, or am I going to keep the 550s and the 550i? I am going to keep them for now. I am going to continue to use them. At a minimum, the 550s will stay in my van as a backup manifold potentially, okay? If I watched my own video today, okay, what I showed right now, would I go out and buy any one of these manifolds after what I've known or what I've shown in my videos? No. I personally would not go out and rebuy these manifolds showing what I've shown, okay? But that doesn't mean that's how you guys have to react, okay? You guys need to look and see, is this something you want? Is it something you don't want, okay? Me personally, I probably wouldn't rebuy this stuff. The psychrometers, yeah, those are great. I would probably lean towards Testo probes myself because I'm kind of a probe guy. I've really been going the probe route, okay? But again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with either manifold. They all have their interesting quirks, okay? Quirks and features. Maybe you guys will get what that's from. That's from a car review guy's stuff. He's a pretty funny dude on YouTube. But I like the Testo products, okay? Interesting. I've never used them before. They're interesting. The integration with the app, there was some frustrations. There was some real frustrations trying to figure out how to use the app, figuring out how the psychrometers don't work with the 550s. It's a bit frustrating, okay? Hey, take it for what it is. I really, really appreciate you guys making it to the end of the video. Please, guys, subscribe to this channel and share the heck out of this new YouTube channel, okay? Help us grow this channel. Help us so that way we can start making more of these tool review videos. I've already got a bunch of new stuff on the way from TrueTech Tools, okay, that I'll be doing reviews on too. And you can expect more reviews from the guys. Okay, I know Adam just got a new blower door. I know Bill's got some funny reviews coming. I'm sure Joe's got some stuff in the works too. So please leave us some feedback, share the channel, give us some watch time, and we will catch you on the next one, okay?